What if Nazi Germany had won World War II? This question has fascinated historians, writers, and audiences for decades. It is the ultimate alternate history scenario, one that asks us to imagine a world shaped not by freedom and democracy, but by totalitarian domination. In this extended AI-powered documentary, we will explore this terrifying possibility. We will imagine the military strategies that might have led to a German victory, the immediate aftermath of a Nazi-dominated Europe, the global political order that might have emerged, the fate of science and technology, and finally, how everyday life might have looked in this alternate world. This is not a celebration, but a warning. By simulating such a world, we better appreciate the fragile victories of freedom, and the dangers of tyranny. Part 1: The Path to Victory. To imagine a Nazi victory, we must first consider where history could have turned differently. In reality, Nazi Germany lost because it fought too many enemies on too many fronts, underestimated the resilience of the Soviet Union, and provoked the industrial might of the United States. But what if things had gone another way? Scenario 1: Hitler does not invade the Soviet Union in 1941. Instead, Germany consolidates its control of Western Europe, fortifies its defenses, and pushes Britain into either surrender or isolation. Without the Eastern Front draining German resources, the Reich may have been able to outlast Britain and prevent American involvement. Scenario 2: The invasion of the Soviet Union succeeds. Imagine if Moscow fell in 1941 or 1942. If the Wehrmacht had captured the Soviet oil fields in the Caucasus, Germany would have gained the fuel it desperately needed. A Soviet collapse would have freed millions of troops for other campaigns. Scenario 3: The United States never enters the war. Perhaps isolationist politics keep America out, or Japan avoids attacking Pearl Harbor. Without American industry, Germany could dominate the Atlantic and maintain supremacy over Europe. In any of these alternate paths, by the mid-1940s, Nazi Germany could plausibly stand victorious over Europe, and perhaps much of the world. Part 2: A Nazi-dominated Europe. So, what would such a victory look like? First, Europe would be divided into spheres of control. Western nations like France, Belgium, and the Netherlands would be under direct Nazi occupation. Puppet governments loyal to Berlin might exist in places like Vichy France or fascist Spain, but ultimately, they would answer to Hitler. Eastern Europe would face a far darker fate. In our real history, Nazi plans for the East, known as Generalplan Ost, were horrific. They envisioned the extermination or enslavement of tens of millions of Slavs to make way for German settlers. If victorious, these plans might have been carried out on an unimaginable scale. Entire nations like Poland, Ukraine, and Russia would have been reduced to colonies, their populations decimated, their cultures erased. The Holocaust, already one of history's greatest crimes, might have expanded further. Without defeat, the Nazi regime could have continued extermination campaigns against Jews, Roma, political dissidents, and anyone they deemed undesirable. The scale of suffering would be far beyond what we can measure. Part 3: The Global Order. Would Nazi Germany have ruled the entire world? Perhaps not, but with Europe under its control, Germany would be the dominant superpower of the mid-20th century. In this world, Britain might have signed a peace treaty, becoming a subservient ally or neutral island. The Soviet Union, if defeated, would cease to exist, its territory divided between Germany and perhaps Japan. The United States, isolated across the Atlantic, might have turned inward, maintaining influence in the Americas but unable to project power across the ocean. Japan, Germany's ally, could dominate East Asia and the Pacific. A world map of 1950 in this timeline might show a massive Nazi empire in Europe and Africa, and a Japanese empire stretching from China to Australia. The Cold War, as we knew it, would not exist. Instead of democracy versus communism, the world might have been divided between fascist superpowers. Part 4: Science and Technology. What about science? Nazi Germany was already pursuing advanced technologies: rockets, jet aircraft, even early concepts of nuclear weapons. If victorious, they might have advanced these projects further. The V-2 rocket program could have evolved into intercontinental ballistic missiles. Jet fighters and bombers could have dominated the skies. Perhaps Germany, not the United States, would have landed the first human on the moon. But there is another side to this story. Nazi ideology was deeply anti-scientific. Many brilliant Jewish scientists fled Germany before the war, contributing to Allied victory. In a Nazi-dominated world, those minds would have been silenced or exterminated. Scientific progress might have been twisted toward war and racial ideology, rather than medicine or human advancement. AI simulation shows two possible futures. One where technology races ahead under military pressure, and another where science stagnates under censorship and dogma. Either way, the world of innovation and freedom we know today would not exist. Part 5: Everyday Life in a Nazi World. Perhaps the most chilling question: is this what would life have been like for ordinary people? For Germans loyal to the regime, life might appear stable. Propaganda would glorify the Führer, youth indoctrination would be universal, and surveillance would ensure obedience. Consumer goods might be fewer, but military power would dominate culture. For conquered peoples, life would be harsh. In Western Europe, education and culture would be censored, economies exploited, and resistance brutally crushed. In Eastern Europe, millions would be enslaved or killed, entire cities wiped from maps. Freedom of speech, religion, and press would vanish. Fear would be constant. The world would live under a shadow where questioning authority meant death. Part 6: Long-term consequences. Could such an empire last forever? History suggests not. Totalitarian regimes eventually collapse under their own weight. Perhaps by the late 20th century, resistance movements would rise, internal struggles would weaken the right, and the empire would fracture. But it might take decades, even centuries, and in that time, countless lives would be lost, cultures erased, and freedoms destroyed. AI simulation reminds us that alternate history is not just fantasy. It is a tool to understand how fragile our reality is. The victory of democracy in 1945 was not guaranteed. It was the result of sacrifice, resilience, and unity. Conclusion. So, what if Nazi Germany had won World War II? The world would be darker, crueler, and perhaps unrecognizable. Technology might advance, but freedom would wither. Nations might grow, but cultures would die. Humanity's progress would be shackled by tyranny. This is why alternate history matters. It teaches us to value the victories of the past and to remain vigilant in the present. If you enjoyed this journey into a world that could have been, don't forget to like and subscribe for more AI explorations of history, science, and alternate realities. Thank you for watching.